Is Mac Brown washed? That's what people are asking. I mean, the answer is probably yes. But this North
He's
Carolina team is heading into an era with Mac Brown, no longer Gene Chizik, Drake May being gone. It's an entirely new North Carolina football team and kind of staff, not really. Look, year one without Phil Longo did not go as expected, even though you still averaged like over 30 points a game. You were a top 25 offense in terms of points per game. And you were insanely effective in third down situations, which,
it
aka
was
Drake,
Drake May
aka
scrambling.
Drake May was so freaking good. Uh yeah, and your defense was just garbage. Gene Chizik is terrible. Saw it from a mile away last year. I mean, we were literally pounding the table for that like weeks on weeks on
Scapegoat,
weeks.
scapegoat. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that was if you want to scapegoat North Carolina fans, Gene Chizik was terrible. However, Jeff Collins, I think he's an interesting hire there. It's an interesting hire, something to watch out for. But look, let's talk about the quarterback room first. Max Johnson is not a top half ACC quarterback. And that might
Well,
be
are
the
we
most
talking about a
obvious
healthy
state.
Max Johnson? Are we
I'm
talking
talking
about
about a healthy
a
Max
zero
Johnson.
pocket presence Max Johnson?
I'm talking about all of it, Max Johnson. I'm talking about the good, the slow release time, the holding on to the football too long, the having zero pocket presence awareness, not using the middle of the field despite being 6'5". I mean, I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about all of it. Not sliding when you need to. I'm talking about all of it. He's not a top half ACC quarterback at all. Like,
No.
did he win the job? Was that official? Because I haven't looked to see
Well,
if.
so it sounds like it's going to be Max Johnson. Mac
I mean,
Brown came out and
he when
said,
he went in the portal, he went there right away. I mean, right away. Like it wasn't even. There was no time to even think about what happened.
"Can
He
I
just
say
went.
something?" When I saw that happen because he committed with his brother, right, Jake Johnson, I was more excited for Jake Johnson to enter a really good tight end room than it was for Max Johnson to be the quarterback for North Carolina because I thought they could have gotten better. And him and Harrell battering out. I like
They didn't
Harrell in
even
the
wait for
future.
like other quarterbacks to like go in the portal. They didn't even wait. They were just like,
No,
"Yep,
I
that's our
think
guy."
they're gonna enter, and this might be a hot take. They're gonna enter Minneapolis, and they're gonna have a worse quarterback than Minnesota does, and that's not where you want to be, right? In college
That's
football, it's more about Max Brosman, but it's also we've seen Max Johnson, like he is who we keep expecting DJU to change. It's like no, DJU is who DJU is. At the same time, like Max Johnson is Max Johnson, but listen, that is okay because you have a really, really good running back. Omarion Hampton is a legit bell cow. He was very good last year. And yeah, I know you don't have Drake May and whatever. You lose a bunch of offensive linemen, but he is really, really good. And Darwin Barlow,
Barlow.
Barlow is a veteran guy as well. And Gauss, Bullet Gauss, right? Davion Bullet Gauss, he's been a guy that's been super impressive early on. Sounds like he's taken over as that running back 3 spot. So it should be fun. I mean, to me, I think the identity is going to change of this offense. Then we
Yeah.
saw it with Drake May and Sam Howell. It kind of has to, right?
Yeah, and I honestly, when I was like doing my numbers with North Carolina and picking their schedule and trying to evaluate this team, like back in May, June, like whenever I thought of North Carolina, like I knew that it was going to be a battle, but I just always assumed that Connor Harrell was going to win the job, right? Like Connor Harrell, former Alabama, Mr. Alabama football player. I don't know if he was Mr. Alabama, but he won state championship in Alabama. He was a good quarterback. I thought in his limited time last year, I thought he was actually pretty okayly decent. I think he's a really good athlete. I think it gives you way more upside than Max Johnson ever could in this offense. And I'm not always a proponent of just throwing a guy out there that's not ready, right? Just for the sake of giving him reps. But I mean, I feel like you're potentially stealing the development of Connor Harrell, right? Like you were stealing
Yeah.
snaps from him. If you put in Max Johnson, you are stealing snaps from Connor Harrell and potentially his development, and
And,
therefore, Mac Brown's going to retire after this year because he does not care about the future of North Carolina.
well, that's crazy, crazy.
No.
Okay,
Maybe 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 4, but I'm just saying there might be some stuff in there that we're not seeing. Because, like, when I look at some of the stuff that Mac Brown's done, I just, dude, I mean, like,
to me, I mean, how do you lose all this? Well, listen, here's what I'll say is I think part of it too is you have a lot of top end talent on this team. You've got a couple of All-Americans in Hampton. Nesbitt's really, really good. You've got obviously Kamon Rucker. Des Evans is in his last year. Power Eccles is there. Elijah Hudge is a senior. Couple senior safety duo. Like you've got this is kind of the year, and I think he must feel that Max Johnson gives them the best chance to win this year. And if there's going to be an opportunity to make another ACC title game, it's this year because that schedule is terrible. It is terrible in a good way for North Carolina in terms of
of
in
course.
conference. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I'm with you in terms of as a Minnesota fan, I would have been a lot more scared if Harrell was coming on than if it was Max Johnson. And also, by the way, and we'll get to it, your offensive line is not very good this year, or it's replacing a lot of guys. And Max Johnson, first of all, he might even get hurt, 4 games in the season anyway, so it might not even matter. And I say that jokingly, but he has terrible pocket presence, which you talked about. So if you're going to have an offensive line that's putting it together, and Minnesota's defensive line is pretty damn good, what are you doing? Just throw him out to the wolves right there, knowing he can't defend himself, with getting the ball out on time and accurately and whatever. And I don't hope I eat my words, but watch me eat my words and watch him carve up Minnesota's defense. And they come into
I mean,
Minneapolis and they
he
get a big
could,
win.
like, every once in a while he has like the game he had against
Gunslinger.
like the Ole Miss game last year, 2 years ago the Texas A&M game. Like every couple games, like he'll just throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and while playing on one leg or something like something crazy to the heroic effect of that.
He is all, dude, he is awesome. But okay, he is awesome to watch though because he's gutsy and he'll stand in there and he'll does it to himself because he sits there so long, but he'll take hits and he'll make throws. And a lot of times that's where he gets into his trouble in terms of throwing interceptions because he gets hit while he's thrown and he's got that lefty slow release and it's just ends up in the air and bad things happen when that happens. But it's going to
Yeah,
be, I think, I don't think North Carolina fans remember what it was like because was it Mitch, Sam Howell, to Max Johnson?
yeah.
Fuck, to Drake May,
Drake
to
made to
Max
Max
Johnson.
Johnson.
Here's what I'll say is I think the interior two are a lot more like than the exterior two. No, that's just the Bears fan and me upset about Mitch Trubisky. But I don't know. I think there's going to be and then everyone knows it's going to be a big difference with May. And I think he covered up a lot of holes on that team. And we'll
Yes.
see. I do think the team around them is a little bit better potentially, but we'll see. You
Well,
can
let's talk
go.
about
What
let's
we
talk
can
about
move
the wide
on.
receivers then. Okay. Nate McCollum, you know, missed some games. I think it's fine, right? Like, look, this is a I don't have the right word for it. This is an interesting stable of wide receivers. Like you have, I'll say it again. I use the word pieces like literally every single freaking time we're talking about any team ever. But Nate McCollum, Kobe Pacer, JJ Jones, look, guys that when they're in the game, they produced at times. Look at Blackwell. I mean, look, and they didn't go get anyone in the transfer portal, right? Not that they're great evaluators of talent in the transfer portal, anyways. Getting Max Johnson, gosh, sorry. Look, North Carolina fans, just be prepared to be really frustrated watching Max Johnson. Okay, really, like, just teeth grindingly frustrated watching Max Johnson. Like, make sure if you got caps in your tooth, make sure you're just making sure you're not chipping those. All right. But I think the wide receiver group is good enough to where I don't think it's a super concern on this team. Is that how you feel, or are you a little bit more concerned about some of the depth of this wide receiver group?
No, it's pretty solid. You bring back everybody but Walker, right? Tez Walker. So it's McCollum, and
Who was
he
really good.
torched Minnesota. Yeah, but McCollum outside of Minnesota and Syracuse, it was kind of up and down year coming over from Georgia Tech. And so we'll see how he gets going this year with the new quarterbacks. Kobe Pastor's, not bad. Uh, JJ Jones he's back as well. He's a very good player as well. How about Jordan Ship and Gavin Blackwell, a couple of young guys? I think there's enough bodies in that room to where they feel pretty good. Is there an alpha? No, but I also think with the running backs and potentially, maybe not an elite offensive line,
Tight ends.
you got good tight ends. You got good tight ends. So that's where you're kind of going to be coming in from short to intermediate game over the middle of the field, except Max Johnson doesn't like to use that. Regardless, so I'm fine about this room. I'm excited to see a guy like Jordan Ship play. I don't know how much he'll give you year one, but he's a talented kid. Him and Alex Taylor. So we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this group.
Yeah, tight ends, pretty nuts. Bryson Nesbitt. I mean, tight end, wide receiver, basically just a pass catching body, right? Jake Johnson, I think, was a really good get, by the way. Like Jake Johnson was the number one tight end in his class in 2022. He comes over from Texas A&M, brother of Max Johnson. They had a pretty good repertoire together when they played. I would imagine that uh, he probably gets some more reps blocking. He had some struggles because he was pretty young last year, just in his second year, but now he's put on some more weight. He's a redshirt sophomore, significant year. I think Jake Johnson is set to improve big time, right? And you also have John Koppenhaver, like very good tight end room. Feels like a lot of similar bodies though, like a lot of guys. I don't know if you have that one road grading tight end where if your offensive line, specifically at your tackle position, doesn't pan out that well as you're hoping. I would hope that your tight ends are able to contribute to the run game blocking wise, but I'm not sure if this group is going to be at that level. But we'll see with Jake Johnson and what kind of development we see from him in year 3. Jake Johnson.
I also think it's like if it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and you need to run the football, you like to have an extra body you can bring in, whether it's an offensive tackle or an extra tight end, to come in and add some beef and really run behind. And I don't really see that in the tight end room. And the O line, it is what it is. We'll just see about it because there is a ton of changing pieces, a ton of revolving doors, and still some talent there too with Zach Rice as well. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, the tight end room overall is damn good, and it should be fun for those quarterbacks to be able to use and rely upon as consistent targets. But that wide receiver or that O line group, I'm so sorry. Oh man, what's gonna happen there? So we're thinking about Howard Sampson. We're thinking about Willie Lampkin. You feel pretty good about those guys, I guess. Um,
Do
is
you feel
Austin
good about Howard
Blasky?
Sampson?
You know what? Sure.
All right, let's be optimistic. Hey, let's.
Yeah. Let.
We've been playing hate Max Johnson game for a while. Let's be
Yeah.
overly optimistic about this offensive line.
Well, yeah, and so you got Lefkowitz or Leftwich, as a guy that can do a lot of things for you. You got Aiden Banfield as a young true freshman that they really like as an offensive guard, and he's going to crack the lineup somewhere. It depends on where it may be. Maybe left guard. I'm looking at maybe center, probably left guard, but we'll see how early that is and how early he can help you. But then there's Zach Rice, man. I was hoping he was going to take a step this year and really do some damage, live up to that 5-star that he was, right? And it sounds like it's maybe another another year away. Is tell me when you've heard that about a line piece on the offensive defensive line, high recruit
from
from
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Regardless, though, you replace 4 or 5 starters and one of your backups. That's 5 of 6 guys. Fuck, man.
No, I'm not
Team.
feeling good about it. I can't pretend to be optimistic anymore. Uh, yeah, this was somehow a top 30 offense last year because of Drake May and Tez Walker. The late surgence of him, obviously, because of his stupid suspension, was ridiculous. And obviously the emergence of Marion Hampton too, right? Like that was a guy that emerged in the offense. Guys that
Yep.
maybe beat writers, not named us, were a little bit higher on him, and he ended up popping off big time. Yeah, I just look at this. I look at his offensive line, and I'm like, is this what it looks like, Mac Brown? Is this really what it looks like? In year
Why in
six,
years? Yeah.
this is what it looks like. It's just a little disappointing, and it was bad last year, and it was not great the year before that either. Yeah, man, I just really, really struggle to be optimistic about this offensive line group. We'll have to see because look, it's going to look good early on, and you or I might get caught the the trance of possibly watching North Carolina and being like, well, their offensive line doesn't look too bad. But, then you look at their schedule to start the season and you're like, okay, Minnesota, who has Jaw Joyner, right? Jaw Joyner might make this team look really silly on the offensive line. But then Charlotte, North Carolina Central, James Madison, who lost some guys, Duke, who lost their entire defensive line. I mean, Pitt's a little Narduzzi, but I don't know if they're going to give him that much trouble. Just not good. I'm not optimistic about this offense at all. And I really hope that maybe they give Connor Harrell some sort of chance. Here's the thing. I'll say Max Johnson might start the season, but Connor Harrell is going to finish the season. I can guarantee that. Guarantee that. So when I'm doing my numbers, I'm still thinking about Connor Harrell being the quarterback for them. So, but let's move on. Let's move on to the defense. You hired Jeff Collins. He's going to run a little 3-3-5. As if your run defense wasn't already a problem enough, right? No,
Oh,
I'm just
come
kidding.
on.
I know, God, North Carolina fans are gonna hate me for this. No. Jeff Collins is a good hire. All right, Jeff Collins is a good defensive mind. We'll see how it fits here on the defensive line. it feels like you have some really nice pieces here on the defensive line. Kamon Rucker, fantastic,
Ooh.
fantastic football player, and that's obviously no secret to North Carolina fans. It shouldn't be a secret to anyone who's even casual fans of college football. They should know Kamon Rucker is. He's a spectacular pass rusher over there for North Carolina. I like pieces like Desmond Evans. I like Bo Atkinson. I like Kevin Hester. Uh, Joshua Harris, I think, is a decent interior guy that they brought over as well. So I'm I feel pretty good about this defensive line. If there was any group on this entire team that I feel good about, maybe one other. I'm okay with the starters on this team. Now, here's the thing. We've seen some late, uh, whatever the word that is the opposite of surge for North Carolina the last couple of years, losing your last 4 weeks, the last 2 years. Are you going to have an issue where you know you're going to have attrition because you're going to be dependent so heavily on these top level guys for this defensive line that you're uh early on you might win some games, but you're going to be uh I guess, well, what's the word?
Like
Haunted
limping.
into. Yeah, are you going to be is Jeff Collins going to be tantalized by the talent that he has there in the top 5, top 4 guys that he's not going to rotate that much, right? And he's just going to leave those guys out there because that's his best options.
Well, they did talk about in terms of that linebacking core. We'll get to it eventually. They want to rotate there too. Listen, I don't know. I mean, first of all, Kamon Rucker doesn't need to come off the field. He has 900 snaps last year, just about. He is damn good, and he didn't slow down really that much throughout the season. What you mentioned guys like Bo Atkins and how can he step up? Jacoby Kawan, it sounds like he's impressing. Jabron Harvey and Tyler Thompson, those are two guys that are need to be able to give them reps as well. And then, yeah, Rodney Laura, a guy there in the interior. Where's Travis Shaw? Where's he? When's he going to come out from his hiding, right? So I'm with you in terms of a little concern about the depth there, but I do think there are some names and talent that, we'll see if they get the most out of. They got a new D line coach, I think, that's working with him, trying to get the best out of guys like Des Edmonds and whatnot. So it'll be up to them to keep those guys fresh, but also put the best guys on their chances to win. And that's also where you got to take care of business too, where if it's Pittsburgh or maybe even Wake Forest, like you just got to put them away early and give your chance to either rest and whatnot and play guys, develop guys, but also keep your guys fresh for the rest of the season.
So you briefly brought up the linebacker group. You lose Cedric Gray, who was, a tackle machine, an NFL prospect, a good football player. You still got Power Eccles, who is very good at the linebacker position. But you got some youth in this room, a sense of inexperience in the rest of the linebacker group, but they didn't really bring anyone in the transfer portal, so uh do we feel good about this linebacker group, or do you think this was negligence?
Listen, it'll be all right. So you don't really
Or
need a ton of guys there with that 3-3-5, 4-2-5, whatever they're going to be playing. So it sounds like Amari Campbell, he's got a broken hand right now, which stinks. But he's wearing a club, and we love our linebackers with clubs, and so he's going to be
yeah.
awesome there. Try to step in for Cedric Gray's absence. And then you got some young guys. We mentioned they wanted to be able to build depth so they could rotate guys and keep guys fresh. I mean, Eccles and Gray played almost 900 snaps each themselves. So that is not where you want to be. And also rely upon guys so heavily in case there is injury and attrition. So Caleb Lavale, he's working at that will linebacker spot. It sounds like the game's slowing down for him. Called a law, excuse me. He's playing well too in camp. They're just continuing to build depth there with some guys, and at least while they're on the younger side for sure, but there's some talent and some athletes in that room to be able to give you some kind of relief or options, for if Power Echoes goes down or if Amari Campbell's hands bothering him and whatnot.
Okay. Um, then let's, I guess, move over to the secondary because I think there's some good pieces here. I think you got some good snaps from Elijah Hudson, who came over there from Eastern Tennessee State last year, and he got you 727 snaps at that cornerback spot, and he was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought he was okay. I thought he was pretty good. Marcus Allen played 900 snaps for you last year, and he was pretty good. Maybe not the most physical guy in the run game, stepping up, making plays in that aspect, but makes great plays on the ball. Dude, I 7 pass breakups, an interception to boot with that. Now, he did have 40 tackles, but I think also some of that was just players getting to the second level, having to make tackles. So I'm optimistic about your two starting cornerbacks there, and in the safety room, Landon Harris. I mean, check the box for safeties with experience, which to me is more important than a safety with just kind of talent. Like I like an experienced safety. So honestly, I feel good about this top end talent in the secondary. Caleb Cost, true sophomore, playing that star position. I'm liking what this team potentially has. Um, I'm not sure how I feel about the depth of this defensive back room, particularly at the cornerback position. I don't think you have a lot of experience there. You'd be relying on some really young guys, right? If Marcus Allen or Huzzy happen to get hurt, I think you'd have to maybe move some guys around big time to avoid kind of the catastrophe of starting some true freshmen before they're ready.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. Allen and Huzzy are a great duo, almost dynamic. Both long, or Allen's really long and athletic, and Huzzy is just really, really good. Uh, they expect both those guys to be your big time corners for them. But yeah, you said Trey Miller, Zion Ferguson, guys like that behind them, they're going to be ready to play before they're probably going to be ready to play. They're going to have to be. So you mentioned moving guys around with whether that's moving Caleb Koss or DeAndre Boykins, over out to the outside or just shifting guys around, playing more zone, whatever it may be. But that's where you also got to have development and the interior at defensive line, not only getting in to third and long, but also being able to get after the quarterback, so corners don't have to cover a ton if those guys are in there, not named Allen and Huzzy. But Allen and Huzzy are a fun duo, and that's you could do a lot worse in college football. And I think Huzzy also returns punts too, and just shows you the athleticism, how much trust they have in him too, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and quick note on Jakeem Harris. He has played a lot of football. If you're looking at stats last year, playing only one game. Look, he's played 800 snaps in 2020, 400 snaps, 500 snaps in 2021. Um, he's played a lot of football. Let's just stay healthy. Let's just stay on the field. Okay. Um, I think he can be pretty decent. I think those four guys can be solid. But yeah, depth is a concern. I think depth is a concern I don't think depth is a huge concern on the defensive line, obviously, but I think at certain positions like, offensive line and in the secondary, I think depth is just a little bit of a concern. And I would put linebacker in that category. I don't exactly think that sounded like you were a little bit more optimistic on some of these other backups at the linebacker spot. But if Power Eccles goes down, I think that's a
It's
huge
just a
shot.
drop off.
It's a huge shot to the defense.
Yeah.
I think this is a defense that's kind of relying on a couple superstars, and it's kind of mushy. In other places, I think you got some superstars at that cornerback spots. I think you got a superstar in Power Eccles. I think you got a superstar in Kamen Rucker. In some of the other talent that defensive line, I think is also good. I don't know. It's a little suspect to me, to be honest. A little suspect once again. So when I look at this overall win total of 7.5, and here's the thing: this schedule is just absolute baby shit soft. Okay, you get Minnesota on the road in week 1, which by the way, they're not favored in that game. If that tells you
Yeah.
anything, like Minnesota's over under win total in the Big Ten is 5.5.
It
Five and a
started at
half.
4.5.
Start at 4.5. Don't put 4.5. So let's just keep going through the schedule. All right. Charlotte at home week 2, North Carolina Central week 3 at home, James Madison week 4. Okay, those are your out of conference games. All right. All winnable games. You're going to be favored in 3 of them. James Madison has a chance to embarrass you. They really do. New coach in there. They have a chance to embarrass you. Duke on the road. Duke has a chance to embarrass you legitimately. All right. I know their defensive line's bad, but if they get aggressive and Max Johnson is still playing quarterback by week 5, it could be a problem.
Oh my god.
I'm telling you, and you know what? Max Johnson might look great those first 4 weeks. He might look great.
But it's coming.
But it's coming. Oh, Josh Joyner coming from the blind side is gonna go shatter a couple of his ribs.
Yeah.
Pitt at home week 6, Georgia Tech at home week 7. Week 8, you get a bye. Virginia on the road week 9. Wait, bye week 8, Virginia on the road week 9. Florida State on the road week 10. You get a bye week 11. Wake Forest home week 12. Boston College on the road week 13. NC State at home week 14. So over on a win total 7.5. And I tried every way to take this under and put money on it. I mean, not just take the under because yeah, I'm on the under. Okay. For picking the show 7.5. I absolutely am on the under. I tried, I just don't see the value personally in getting it at minus or taking the under at minus 105 because of how soft the schedule is. I mean, drawing Pitt, Virginia, Wake Forest, Boston College, Duke, and then having your out of conference be Minnesota, Charlotte, North Carolina Central, and JMU. That's like 9 games that you're going to be 8 games you're probably going to be favored in.
And you should be favored in 9, although on the road at Minnesota is what it is. But they're over one total. And I'm a Minnesota guy. It's 5.5, and I'll be ecstatic if we make a bowl game.
I think it
I
also just kind of shows you though how now I'm high on like the quarterbacks in the ACC, obviously not Max Johnson, but the bottom of this ACC is pretty not good.
no.
And I think Minnesota being favored at home against North Carolina is a surefire sign of that. So I'm gonna take the under here. I don't think I'm gonna bet. I might if I can find an alt line where like it's worse than 7.5. I might do that. But they should, like you said, they should be favored in like 8 or 9 games this year. So I'm
That's the tough part.
can't do it. Can't actually lay dough on it. Can't justify it. But man,
Yeah,
I
I'm with
want to. And I'm
you.
sorry, North Carolina fans that came in here thinking that, oh, where's the optimism? I'm sorry. Get Mac Brown out of there, and then you'll find some optimism. All right.
Yeah, maybe you can bring Jeff Collins back to ACC head coaching. No, but I'm with you too on the under. I just think a lot of winnable games, but also a lot of losable games. We've seen this happen time and time again. I know every team's different. I get that, but this team, there's no Drake May, there's no Sam Howell, there's no elite weapons to bail you out, and you're just gonna have to play, consistent, solid football for 60 minutes in a lot of these football games to win. And I just don't trust them to do that just yet. Obviously, with the exception of Minnesota, I hope I'm wrong. I really do, but we'll see. We hope a bunch of you guys travel up to Minnesota. I know it sounds like a lot of the guys are planning on doing that, which would be awesome. But I don't think it's crazy that North Carolina fans are expecting, a down year. I think they realize that there's some stars on this team, but they also realize there's a lot of big holes and some inconsistencies and guys that need to work out that maybe, haven't quite worked out at other spots before.